Hey guys, it's Mr. Butler over at Heatherglen. Today we are going to be talking about Impressionism.
Are you talking to me?
What?
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to these guys. We're going to learn about
You said you wanted
the
impressions.
Impressionists.
Tell me who this one is.
Jonas.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the Impressionists.
One more. Who's this?
Hey, Pluto, let's go see what Donald's doing.
It's Mickey Mouse, but that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about the Impressionists, such as Monet and Impressionists.
Yeah, aren't those the guys that study and recreate voices?
No, actually they're the guys that study and recreate light. The Impressionists were a group of guys that were fascinated by light. It could be said that they weren't even really painting the objects they were painting. They were painting the way that light bounced off those objects and the way that it changed at different times of day. In fact, they would often paint the same building or bale of hay over and over again during different light conditions just to see the different kinds of colors that they should use. Monet also did a number of indoor paintings called still lifes, where he focused on how light bounced off stuff like flowers and bowls of fruit, which is what we're looking at today. For this project, we're going to be using crayons, scissors, glue, and construction paper. All right, so first I'm going to show you two ways to make the circle that we're going to start our apple with. Here's the easy way first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my crayon near the edge of my square, my black crayon, and I'm just going to sort of make a little curve shape. And as I'm making a curve shape, just sort of back and forth, I'm going to turn my paper, right? This does not have to be a perfect circle. I'm just going to rotate my paper. I want to make it kind of a nice circle, but it does not have to be perfect if I mess it up, okay? I can kind of come back once I have it drawn, just anywhere that looks kind of messy or fuzzy. Sort of go back over it, make it smoother, rounder, whatever you want. So there we go. So there's our circle. That's the easier way, where you make a circle and you kind of rotate the paper. Now, if you want to make your apple a little more advanced looking, then we're going to do the same kind of arc, except we're going to do it a little higher up. It's going to be more like here. And I'm going to flip my paper around and straight across from it. So as it's flipped from the top to the bottom, it's going to be over here on the left. Okay, straight across from it. It's going to be my other side. At the top, instead of trying to make it a perfect circle, it's going to be more or less round, but it's going to be slightly flatter. Not quite a perfect circle. So round, not actually flat, but flatter than the others. Okay, and then down here, we're going to make the sides straight just for a little bit. Just a little straight spot. In fact, you can even curve them in ever so slightly if you want, not too much. Okay, and then down here on the bottom, you can make it round like the top, or you could put a couple of little very subtle, very gentle bumps on the bottom. Sometimes the bottoms of apples have these little feet-looking thing. And remember, no apple is exactly perfect. No two apples are exactly the same. So as long as it looks something like that, who's to say? All right, now the next step is we're going to draw a little smiley face right here. So very, very flat. Don't draw it too big and don't draw it too low. It needs to be near the top, and it's going to be very flat. And you're going to want to leave lots of space on the side. Okay. So over here on our circle apple, we're going to make kind of an oval shape, and it's going to be near the smiley face, but it's not going to touch it. See how it's close to the smiley face and it's on the left. Just sort of a big white bright spot. Now you are still going to see a little bit of orange color through the crayon. It is not going to completely cover up the orange, and that's okay. So just sort of a slightly tall oval shape over here. Okay. And now above the smiley face, so this was below the smiley face on the left side, above the smiley face on the right side, I'm going to make one teeny tiny skinny oval that's kind of pointing up. You can even make it curve out like an apostrophe. So just little little tall, skinny oval that goes above the smiley face. So you've got a big round one under the smiley face and a tall, skinny one above the smiley face. And we're going to do more or less the same thing over here. Except this one isn't going to be, on this one, it's not going to be quite as round. We're going to make this one more of a rhombus diamond shape. It'll still be rounded once we color it in, but we want to sort of aim for this slightly straighter sides. Okay, get it as wide as the crown will let you, and then once you've got it in there, then we're going to sort of round the edges off. So it's going to look sort of like this one, but a little more blocky. And then this up at the top, same kind of deal. We're going to do sort of this a little apostrophe thing on the right side. Okay, now on our more complicated apple, I'm going to take my yellow and I'm going to make sort of a zigzag stripe that goes from the left side. We're going to skip over the white spot, and then we're going to curve sort of a big, broad, smiley face shape. But it's going to be a zigzag. See how I'm kind of going up and down? So sort of a yellow stripe that's going to go on top of that orange. Yellow stripe over the orange. Okay. And then I'm also going to do a little yellow stripe on the left side of my shiny at the top. So same kind of thing, just sort of zigzag. It does not need to touch the edges. This is one of those parts that's just going to sort of add a little bit of depth to our final color. It does not have to be in any kind of a particularly perfect place. And just because apples tend to have these yellow streaks, I'm going to put a slightly taller one over here on this right side. You don't have to add this one in. This is just if you want to get a little fancy. But it's important to note that as these stripes right here, kind of like here on the side, these parts are straight. As you get up here in between the two curves, these lines are also going to curve in. They're going to curve into that and meet that smiley face. Okay? Now, for our easy apple, we're going to take our red and we're going to very carefully go around the white shinies. We don't want to cross over. We're going to go around them with red outlines. We're going to go around the white with red outlines. It's okay if the red touches the white, like if your crayon crosses over the white a little bit, that's totally okay. You just don't want to color in the middle, okay? You want to leave that white as bright white as you can get it, okay? So go around the red. Go around the white with red. And in fact, I'm going to make my outline around that white a little thicker. Really, we're going to color the whole thing red because it's an apple. And I'm putting these outlines around the white just to kind of protect it. So as I'm coloring, I don't accidentally bump into the white, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is right on the inside of this black stripe, I'm going to color this with red too. Again, just to kind of give it a nice smooth feel. And you'll notice I'm coloring in curves, right? I'm not scrabbling up and down. I'm following the curve of the shape of that circle. Just kind of follow it around. Turn the paper if you need to. I always turn my paper whenever I'm coloring curves, because my hand likes to make curves like this. It does not do curves very well this way, right? It's always easier to draw the curving toward the top of your hand. If we draw it like this, then we got to get our whole arm and shoulders involved, and it just looks awkward. Okay, so now I've got my outline. I've got my outline around the shinies. And what I'm going to do next is very smoothly, right down the center, I'm going to draw a straight red line right down the middle. Just right down the center. More or less straight, doesn't have to be perfect. Okay? And then right here, in between the straight line and the curved side, actually I'm going to flip this over first. In between the straight line and the curved side, I'm going to color with big, gentle, controlled, curved lines that are going to try to meet that straight line. So straighter as you get towards the middle, more curvy as you get towards the outside. Okay? And I've already got my outlines around the shinies, so I know I'm going to be very careful not to color over them. Okay, and there we go. And you see how I'm not filling mine in all the way, it still looks a little bit strokey. That's great, that's what we want, because apples have those little tiny stripes on them. Okay, same thing over here. I'm going to turn my hand so it's going into the curve, and I'm going to very carefully color with that curve shape. It's going to meet my little red outline here. I don't want to color over the white. And as it gets to the middle, my lines are going to get a little straighter. Just kind of color in here very carefully. And as I get up here to the smiley face, this one's going to be a little tiny bit different. I'm going to curve sideways into the smiley face as I'm going around it. It's going to kind of get straighter in the middle, okay? So it'll color curved down into the smiley face like this. And you can kind of do the other on the other side like that. All right, there we go. We're done with our red on this apple for now. Now we're going to do something similar on our harder apple. I'm going to put a straight line down the middle, just like we did on the other one. I'm going to put a sort of a protective fence around our shiny spot, protective fence around this shiny spot. By the way, I don't know if you noticed this, but we colored over everything here except for the white. We're going to do the same thing here. We're coloring on top of the yellow. We do not color on top of the white. So everything gets colored red except for those shiny spots. That's why we're being so careful to put this little red protective fence around the white. Okay. All right, and we're going to do the same thing around the edges. And you'll probably notice that as your red crayon is trying to color over that yellow, it doesn't want to go on the yellow. You see that? How it gets nice and red when I'm coloring on the paper, but when it crosses over that yellow, it does not want to go. That's a good thing. That's what we want it to do. We want that yellow to say, no, this is my spot. Okay, so I've got my fence around the white. I've got my border around the edges. Okay, now the only thing you have to really worry about here is kind of like we talked about before, where the sides are straight, you want your coloring to be straight, right? And sometimes you can even put in your lines just to kind of remind yourself. So right in the middle, it's going to go up and down. As it gets toward the edge, it's going to start to lean out. Y'all see how I'm doing that? It starts to slowly lean out to match the edge. Okay, now where the sides are curved, the coloring is going to be curved. And I'm going to flip it over again like this so I can work with the curve of my hand. Okay, so where the sides are curved, the coloring is going to be curved, and it's going to slowly get straighter as it gets toward the middle, right? The sides are curved here, so the coloring will be curved. And the same thing here. Remember when we're coming over the sort of the shoulder right there into the smiley face, it's going to curve out like that, curve out like that. Okay, so this is the part that makes this apple a little bit more complicated. It's not just the different shape, it's the fact that the curve, you got to really follow the curves carefully, follow these lines carefully when you're coloring, or it's not going to look as much like an apple. Okay, so I'm going to flip it over again. I'm going to do my curved parts first. And again, I'm going to go right on top of that yellow like it's not even there. I'm just going to pretend it's not there, color right on top of it. And the yellow is going to say, nope, I don't want that red here. It's going to look streaky, and it's going to try to mix, and that's what we want. We want a streaky look where the red and the yellow are trying to mix. Okay, and then down here, broader strokes. I'm still being very careful and controlled, not to run off the edges, not to make an ugly scribble scrabble. Remember, the most important part here is following those lines. Now, if you're thinking it looks like we're almost done, you're right. We are getting close. The next step is we're going to grab our brown. We're going to do on the easy apple, you see where the smiley face is at the top. We're going to come in here and we're going to do just sort of a little sideways oval. Just real gentle. Don't need to make it too dark. Just a teeny tiny bit, just to sort of darken there in the middle. And we're going to do the same thing at the bottom of the apple. We're just going to sort of make a brown smiley face. It's not going to come up very high. Just right on that bottom edge, just a big curve, smiley face like that. Just a little brown smiley right there. That's it. Little moon shape on the bottom. Okay, same thing here. We're going to put the brown right here above this smiley face. On the bottom, just like we did one big curve here, we're going to do two little curves right here on the feet. And the difference on this one is in the middle, instead of just following the curve, we're actually going to rise up just a little bit. It's going to be sort of a little brown mountain looking thing right here. Just rise up just a little bit. You can kind of bring it up the sides. It's going to sort of look like a cowboy hat if you do it right. Right, you got that piece in the middle and then the sides kind of curve up the edge there. We'll call that our cowboy hat. All right, last step. We're going to take our white. I'm going to go to the edge of our trapezoid, excuse me, our rhombus. And I'm going to just sort of pull the edge of that white over the edge of the red. It is going to smear a little bit, and that's what I want. I'm just going to go straight down. I'm going to follow those same strokes, those same lines that I did before. I'm just going to pull it across. I don't want to make it too, I don't want to go too hard on there because I don't want to kind of mess up what's underneath, but you want to use the white crayon and pull across the red. And again, that red underneath is going to say, no, I don't want you here. So it's not supposed to blend completely. Okay, this is supposed to be the brightest and this is supposed to be faded. Okay, then across the top here, just like we did over here, we're going to curve in. These are going to be like C-shaped strokes right here. Just going to curve it across just a little bit, just to try to pull some of that white color across the red. And we're going to do the same thing sideways. So you see this curved yellow stripe, right? We're going to do, I'm going to use little swirls, just sort of little swirly motion. No, I changed my mind. I'm going to pull it sideways, straight lines. Very gently though, don't get crazy. Follow that curve shape. In fact, if you need to turn it like this, it'll be a little easier to curve it. And don't do much. I'm not covering up the yellow. I'm not even going to go all the way down. You just want to do a little, kind of a medium-sized curve out this side and a little tiny curve up on this side. Right, it's got a curve that way. So this is just sort of a big white arc. It's going to go right across the middle. All right. Pull that down just a little bit. I might pull this one out too. Just a little curve coming this way, a little curve coming that way. There we go. And now we are ready to cut. We're going to take our scissors. Now, if you've never cut around a circle before or a curved object, I know some of us have trouble. How do you turn the scissors while you're cutting? I'm going to show you how I do it. If you're worried that you're going to mess up your picture, then you might just want to practice on a piece of scrap paper first. So if you've got a piece of orange that you got cut off, that you cut off when you were doing your drawing, maybe draw like a little practice circle. Take your scissors before you try to cut on your picture. Just cut to the circle, cut to the edge, and you'll see how my scissors are not on the inside of the circle, they're on the outside, because I want to try to keep that black outline. Okay, as I'm closing the scissors, I turn the paper. As I close the scissors, I turn the paper. Then I open them back up, close the scissors, and turn the paper. Okay, so if you feel like you can do this carefully, then go right ahead and get started. And I'm going to go ahead and cut these out for us. Now it's time to put our apples on paper. I'll try to drop mine right in the middle. Slide this one over and do this one first. So I'm going to take my glue stick, flip my apple over, and I'm going to try to hold it in my hand. I like to put a little bit in the middle and then on the edges, because I hate when I glue something down and the edges try to fly up. But I don't want to use too much. Okay, so I'm holding down the middle and I'm putting some around the edges. Make sure it's turned upright where the little black smiley face is at the top. I'm just going to put it right in the middle. I'm going to use the side of my hand, just very gently press it down. Took a little bit of glue on my fingertips, so I don't want to get that on my picture. Okay, good. Now this one is glued. Do the same thing on our more advanced apple. Maybe we shouldn't say advanced apple. That sounds like it's rotting. Sounds kind of gross. We'll say this one's a Red Delicious, and the other one is a Gala apple. Does that sound right? I'm not sure that I know my apples. Okay, just real gently press it with the side of the hand. You don't want to push too hard, or you can. Crayon doesn't smear too bad. Pastels will smear terribly. Okay, there we go. All right, so we have our Gala apple and our Red Delicious. Okay, next thing that I'm going to do is we're going to add our apple stem, and I'm going to go back around the outline just a little bit. Okay, so first I'm going to do our stem. I start in the middle going up, just a little bit of a line, just a little tiny line there. Okay, and as it goes up, I'm going to curve just a tiny bit to the right. So up and to the right. Up and to the right. Don't make it too tall. Especially on the Gala, if you make it too tall, it's going to look like a cherry. Okay, now on the spot where I started the stem, so I'll come over here. The spot where I started the stem, right here in the middle, I'm going to trace over it again, and as I get to the top, I'm going to pull just a little bit more to the right, so that it's one line at the bottom and two lines at the top. Same thing here. Start in the same place, go over the line again, and as I'm getting a little higher, I'm going to pull to the right just a little bit. So it splits at the top, but it's together at the bottom. And then a little tiny circle. Little tiny circle. Okay? And then this area right here where it goes on the green, you're going to color that in. Just fill it in right there. Okay? If you want to try to take, I like to take the back side of my brown crayon because that flat edge gives it a nice sharp line. If you want to try and just sort of color over that with some brown, it's not going to be too bright, but it'll give it that sort of that dark brown apple stem look. Okay. I'm going to take my black, and on both of my apples I'm going to go around the outline again just a little bit, and I want part of that outline to touch my paper. Just kind of on the edge there. And it's okay if it looks a little bit rough. It does not have to be perfectly smooth and sharp. I'm just going to go around it again. Okay. Like I said, if the edge here looks a little bit rough, that's okay. You can add more to the side to smooth it out, but we're actually going to do something here. So if it looks a little bit rough, don't worry about it. Especially since we're doing Impressionists. Their strokes were already a little bit rough. Okay. We're going to take our black just underneath the bottom, just a little teeny tiny bit on both of our apples. Very softly. Don't go all the way out. Don't run it out here. That's too wide. Just kind of maybe a finger's width to the edge, finger's width from the other side. You just want a very soft kind of back and forth zigzag. Just a little bit. Just a little bit of soft zigzag underneath. That's going to show the shadow. Right underneath where these objects touch, where the apple's going to touch the table or the tablecloth, wherever it is. This little tiny shadow where objects touch is called ambient occlusion. And it happens pretty much in every lighting situation. No matter how bright a light you shine on two objects that are touching, there will always be that teeny tiny little shadow right where they meet. Okay. Now we're going to take our blue. I have chosen this blue-green color because it's sort of bright. You could really pick any color blue that you want. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a tabletop, like a tablecloth cover. I'm going to come, not the middle of the apples, I'm going to come up maybe near the top, so 2/3 of the way up, but definitely not up here, definitely not underneath, and I wouldn't put it right in the middle. I'd come up maybe about 2/3 of the way, and I'm just going to draw a straight line out to the edge. Then I'm going to hop over my apple and try to match, like I'm pretending that this line goes all the way through. I'm just going to try to match where this line would come out the other side. Same thing here, come up about 3/4 of the way. On this big apple, on the Red Delicious, it's going to come out right about where the curves are. Come out right about here. Okay, then that's going to be the top of our table. And at this point, you can kind of color underneath however you want. You can kind of keep it simple. You might want to put, like we did around the white, just put a little soft border, just so you're not accidentally covering into the apple. What you definitely want to do is take the blue color and mix it with this shadow underneath. You want to color blue on top of the black so these two mix. They do not want to be separate. Okay, and then once you've got that in there, I'm going to use only sideways lines. And you don't have to fill in the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of put a few here and there. So it's kind of not quite stripes, but I'm making a just sort of more straight lines, so it's not filled in all the way. I don't want to totally cover up my green because I like the green color of my tablecloth. That's called complementary colors because my apple is red, my tablecloth is going to have some green in it, and the background, of course, will be green. So you don't want to get rid of all of that green. Okay. You fill it in just a little bit around the edge of the apple, and same thing over here. Don't forget to carefully mix the color of the blue that you picked with this shadow underneath. You want these two to blend. You want them to be right there in the same spot, coloring over each other. Sideways only strokes. And if you want to get a little bit fancy with the color of this tablecloth, on our other apple, you can take your yellow, because the yellow and the blue will interact with each other and make a greener tablecloth. Okay, sideways strokes only. Remember, we're not trying to fill this in all the way. We want some green to show, we want some yellow to show, we want some blue to show, and we want some spots where they're all kind of blending together. Okay, so don't feel like you have to fill in every little spot. All right, and there we go. I'm going to add one curvy side here in yellow on our gala apple, because even gala apples just have these random, I'm going to turn it upside down, have these random yellow curves. I'm going to do sort of like a yellow moon shape right here, just to give it a nice apple texture. If you want to go one step further, on our Red Delicious apple, you kind of imagine where the shadow would be if the light is hitting it on this side. It's kind of coming down, sort of aiming this way, right? At an angle at the front of it. Then the shadow is going to be on the other side, sort of back diagonally. So you could make like a C shape, or maybe a letter D would be more accurate here. Just kind of coming out of the side, very softly. Don't color too hard. I'm just going to use little circular strokes, just little circles. Little circles, and it's going to hit up against that edge. Okay. The thing about shadows is they're usually very fuzzy. You know, most of the time we don't see those dark defined shadows, like if you can even see my hand on the paper right here. It's hard. They're very fuzzy. You don't usually get those spotlight shadows. So they're going to be a little darker as they're closer to the side of the object. So right here in the left, closer to the apple, I'm going to go with my swirls. I'm going to make them a little darker. As I come out to the edge, I'm going to get lighter and lighter and lighter. Just very, very soft and fuzzy here on the edge. And then just to make it even more blended, I'm going to grab my blue. I'm going to go back over it. That's going to just sort of swirl that color around a little better. Lighten up the edges. And then the same with my yellow. Especially the yellow on the edges because it's a light color. And I want my edges to be a little lighter. So, alright, there we are. What do you guys think? Is this a Monet apple?
No, this is Patrick.